Enemy of the State by Tommy Robinson. Read by David Clark. Introduction. I was hoping to shout out loud 3 cheers for Tommy Robinson on the morning of Thursday, July 23rd, 2015. I say Tommy Robinson. It's sometimes Stephen Lennon in the media, or occasionally a long ago name, Stephen Yaxley. Whatever, it was going to be 3 cheers for me, the founder of the former leader, now officially retired, of the English Defence League. It had been a dramatic, often wild 6 years of street battles and police stitch-ups and fearing for my family's lives, and resisting attempts by Scotland Yard to recruit me as some kind of undercover snitch. 6 years of mad laughs with lads, but also of long weekends and months in solitary confinement. 6 years of having my life turned around, upside down, inside out by the state, all for being a British patriot, for trying to wake my fellow countrymen and women up to the dangers of radical Islam. As of Thursday, July 23rd, I would have been a free man. I would have been able to take my family on holiday, to speak on a public platform without having my collar felt, to go about my business like any other citizen of the UK. The licence period of an 18-month prison sentence for lending my brother-in-law the deposit on his first-time house, yes, really, was due to end on Wednesday, July 22nd. Finally, I could say, without fear of being handcuffed again. Luton and Bedfordshire Police Probation Service, Scotland Yard and the entire British Constabulary kissed my arse. I could have shouted as loud as I could, but no one would have heard. Not while I was locked in yet another concrete box of a solitary confinement cell in the bowels of H&P Peterborough, waiting for someone to tell me what the hell I'd been jailed for this time. Just days before being a free man at last, and thrown into a cell once again on the whim of some sadistic so-called just trying to squeeze one more ounce of misery out of me while they still could. Even the screws in Peterborough Nick could hardly believe it, that someone would get the recall to prison just a week or so before their licence was up. I was in solitary confinement yet again, because despite all of my warnings to the screws, including a note to the prison governor not to do it, they put me on an open wing, 2 cells away from a Muslim leader doing 28 years. He promptly put a massive bounty on my head, and after I gave a Somali prisoner a slapping, I was told he'd taken the contract to attack me with boiling water. I finally got my wish, the safety and sanctuary of being in solitary. It was only a few days until I was free of the system. I could handle that. But the day and night of July 22nd came and went with no explanation. They kept me locked up another 48 hours. It was probably because they, whoever is watching, and believe me they are, knew that I was due to be making a public appearance at the House of Lords on the 23rd. They were desperate to keep disrupting my life for as long as they possibly could. So for all of you history buffs who celebrate 800 years of the signing of the Magna Carta this summer, be my guest and shove your habeas corpus up your deluded liberal backsides. There isn't much justice in the British justice system that I've come to know and hate. Indeed, for someone who has bent over backwards to avoid trouble in recent months and years, I've spent more time in English prisons than some of the great train robbers. If this book writing gig catches on, my next effort might be a guided tour to the many and varied institutions of H&P prison services. Still better, later than never, I'm out. No more weekly sermons from the Marxist matron at the probation service. No more messing up mine and my family's lives just for the hell of it. I'm done with bowing and scraping to busybody do-gooders, to looking over my shoulder for the police every time I tweet something mildly offensive to a home county's communist. I'm free of the English Defence League, and mostly I'm finally free to make my own choices. With my track record, I suspect will include making plenty more mistakes. I just hope that whatever they are, they don't involve hearing the clanging door of a jail cell behind me. I've had enough of them. fairly or unfairly, for a lifetime. Don't worry, you're not going to need a box of Kleenex at your side as you read this book. It really isn't Tommy Does tear-jerking. It's not a sob story. The trouble I've found myself in has been at times clearly self-inflicted, but only at times. You might just learn something about the workings of the British police state that I doubt you believe exists. My overarching crime, at least in the eyes of the British establishment, has been of being a patriot. I love my country. I think that St. George's Day, the 23rd of April, should still be a public holiday. I resent the fact that people who hate the country they call home are pampered and protected by a state that places their so-called rights above those of young men who risked and sacrificed their lives for British democracy. Oh, and just to make things clear from the outset, I really don't care about the colour of those people's skin or the nature of their religion. I never have and still don't. I'm sorry if that disappoints a few of you. But here's something else I believe. If you publicly declare war on me, my family and my country, it's only to be expected that some of us will offer resistance. Clearly, I'm in the minority, or at least so it seemed, since the life of Tommy Robinson began in 2009. My name will be forever connected with the English Defence League. I know that, but this isn't a book about the EDL. Although it obviously plays a major part in it, theirs is a different story, perhaps for another day. For now, this is my story, my attempt to make sense of a life and especially a recent past that even I find barely believable. None of it was planned, but despite everything that I've gone through, I have no regrets other than what my family has been put through, and that wasn't always of my doing. You'll notice that I don't name my wife and children in the book. That's deliberate. They still occasionally pay the heavy price for having me as a father and a husband. Coming home from Peterborough, Nick, albeit a couple of days late, marked the end of an 18-month prison sentence, all because I lent my brother-in-law £20,000 for a deposit on a house, and he overstated his earnings on a self-certification mortgage, which made it criminal. No one lost a single penny, but having tried and failed on numerous accounts to put me away, to silence me, the state finally did. I would argue that they also tried to have me killed in the process, but that's for you to decide. It had taken the police and the state long enough. It had taken them pretty much every day since a group of angry Luton residents shouted enough, having watched extreme Muslims being encouraged by the police to scream their hatred at the returning soldiers of the Royal Anglian Regiment in March 2009. But they'd done their worst. I was still standing, and I was free to speak my mind finally.